Right, so lesson 14 is a project, okay? You have the choice of doing your own project, or you can follow along with me and modify the project so it fits your interests, okay? You'll understand what I'm saying in a minute. So we have a rubric. Oh, let me X out of this. We have a rubric for this project, okay? The project must use 3 sprites. One sprite must respond to user input, for example, key down or mouse did move. Updates at least 3 different sprite properties in the draw loop, such as sprite.x, sprite.scale, or sprite.visible. Your project must use at least one conditional that is triggered by a variable or sprite property. For example, you might see if sprite.y is greater than 300. Your project must increment or decrement a variable or sprite property. For example, score equals score plus 1. That's an example of increment. An example of decrement would be score equals score minus 1. The card includes text that tells the user how to use the card. Okay, that one might not make sense. So let's check this out first. So they are referring to this as an interactive card. Let's take a look. So, happy birthday. Run the program a few times and answer the following questions. Which elements appear to use drawing commands? Okay, so happy birthday, that's using a drawing command. These balloons look like they're using drawing commands. This directions, move the mouse to shake your present, keep shaking to see your surprise. That is probably a drawing command. Which elements appear to be sprites? So far, the only sprite I see is this gift. And okay, so I shook it a few times, and now I see these things that look like sprites, which is a bicycle and a dog. And I guess that's your happy birthday present. For each sprite, which properties are being updated? Okay, so this bicycle looks like it's being updated with sprite.rotation. And if you remember back to the last lesson, when those bees were shaking whenever our mouse moved, it looks like this is what's happening to the dog. So the sprite.x and sprite.y properties are being updated. And what's being updated for the gift? Probably just sprite.rotation. Oh, also sprite.visible. So the gift was visible before. Now it's invisible. And these two were invisible before, but now they're visible. So sprite.visible. 4, where do you see conditionals being used? Okay, I think there's only one conditional, and that would be if box shakes 50 times, let's say, then these 2 sprites appear. These 2 sprites are visible. Are there elements that you don't understand? I don't think so. So let's move on. Okay, so here we have some examples of projects, okay? I like this one the best. It's very simple, and I think it's easy to understand. So, pick all the flowers by clicking on them. Notice that in our rubric, the last criteria is the card includes text that tells the user how to use the card. So, in this project, they're saying pick all the flowers by clicking on them. So let's click on the flowers. Cool. All right. And now this appears. So what sprite elements are updated in the draw loop here? There's the draw loop. And flower.visible, flower.x, flower.y, flower.rotation. Flower count equals flower count plus 1. That's the variable that was created right there. If mouse pressed over flower. So it looks like this has everything in the rubric. It has 3 sprites with the flowers and the vase. Do the sprites respond to user input? Yes, if you click it, it responds to the user input. Updates at least 3 different sprite properties in the draw loop. I just went over that. There's flower.visible. That can change. Flower count changes. Oh, that's a variable though. Flower X changes. Let's see. what else changes? Flower dot rotation changes. Okay, cool. So what else? The conditional that is triggered by a variable or sprite property is if flower count is greater than or equal to 3, then this vase pops up, I think. Yep, the flowers are visible and they're inside the vase. Very cool. Increment or decrement variable or property. So yes, that's the flower count. Okay, each time you click it, the flower count increases. Each time you click the flower. Okay, so let's get started on our project. You can look at the other examples too. Okay, laying out your background. Before beginning this project, you should have already completed the interactive card planning activity. So I am not going to make my students do this, but your teacher might make you do that. And you'll want to have that paper with you as you develop your program. Preparation is one of the most important elements of successfully creating a program. Do this. Refer to your planning activity sheet to help you lay out the shapes that will become the background to your card. First, figure out what the lowest layer in your image is. This should be the background block, and add it to the very top of the draw loop. Okay, here's our draw loop. Let's get a background. Okay, let's make it red. Next, layer each additional drawing block in the order you want them to appear in the stack. Finally, add a comment to the top of this section of code to describe what it does, and if you have any particularly complicated chunks of code within, add a descriptive comment to that as well. So I'm going to add a sun. I'm going to add an ellipse. And I want it to be in the top left corner. Let's say 40, 40. 40, 40. And I have to add some color to the ellipse. Where's the fill? That's what I want. Fill. Okay. And yeah, yellow. That's fine. That's a little big, so I'm going to change the size. Let's make it 100, 100. Cool. Awesome. That's all I want. Adding sprites. Now that you have the more static elements of your card laid out, it's time to add the sprites. Your sprites should provide the primary animations and interactions for your card, so feel free to get creative here and have fun. Do this. Check out the sprites table on the back of your planning sheet. For each sprite in your table, initialize the sprite at the top of your program with create sprite. Find or create this sprite for the sprite and set it with set animation. Okay, I'm gonna put Michael Jordan in here. So let's find a Michael Jordan picture. Again, I want you to do whatever you want. Okay? You don't have to put Michael Jordan in here. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to get a little picture, little icon. Yeah, is this small enough? Let's do it. Save it to my desktop as mj.jpg. Okay, and then I'm going to add the animation, upload image, desktop, mj.jpg. We'll rename it just MJ. Code. So remember, you have to create a variable and set animation. MJ. Okay. So I did these two. Okay. Now we need to, inside the draw loop, update any sprite properties that will be constantly animating. Let's say Let's make him invisible at first. No, I don't want to do that. Let's make him rotating. MJ rotation equals 1. Alright, where's he at? Alright, so make sure you go into world and do draw sprites so that the sprites appear. Right. And MJ rotation equals 1. Okay, that's why it's a little crooked. If you see, I just did 1. Let's set that to 0. So now it's straight. Okay, inside the draw loop. Okay, I think that's it for this level. Adding sprites. Yeah, I only want... Oh wait, no, you need 3 sprites. So let's add some other sprites. Let's say... Let's add this guy. Bunny walk. I'm just going to make it bunny. And we need 3 sprites. So, you know what? Let's give Michael Jordan a little double bass action. But we're just going to name it bass, not double bass. Okay, so we got bunny, and we got bass and double bass. So make sure you create these. Bunny, 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 bass, bass, bass. Cool. Okay. Oh, they all appear in the center. We don't want that. And we're probably going to want to shrink these, the bunny and the bass. So how can we do that? Well, we can change the position of them here. So let's put the bunny about, let's say 50, 350. 50, 350. And then let's put the bass down here, which is 350, 350. 350, 350. Okay, cool. And let's make them a little smaller with sprite.scale. Let's put the scales up here, though. Sprite.scale, bunny.scale. Let's make it smaller. Let's say 0.25 so that it's 4 times smaller. That's a little too small. Let's say 0.4. And we also want scale for the double bass. And let's make that 0.4 as well. Let's see. Yeah, okay, cool. What do we want these things doing? Well, I think that's it for this level. It's just adding sprites. We're going to add some interaction, and we're going to make them do things in the next levels. User input. You've got a background, you've got sprites. Now it's time to give your user something to do. Do this. On the interactions table from your planning sheet, find all of the interactions that rely on user input. Key presses, mouse movements. For each of those interactions, add an if block. Okay, so let's say you want the bunny to rotate every time the user presses the space button. Okay, let's think about that. I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to have to create a new one.